Welcome back to TearRing Saga. Last time, Holmes successfully reclaimed his homeland twice, actually. And this time, he's officially out of this segment of the game, which I like to call Act 3, I guess. So now it is time for Holmes to continue on after he had the party at Blood. And now, just as a heads up, this part is not going to have any battle gameplay. This is going to be entirely story and cutscenes, because there are some big ones that are about to come up. Because our next destination is Orcus Village. Once we go here, we will be experiencing a branching event. And I'm going to show the branch that I won't be taking first. Unfortunate thing about this event... yeah, for some reason, this guy's back. Yeah. And we have another event with this guy. I mean, you'd think that Holmes and Bart would have told everyone about him from, their first trek through Orcus Village, but no. He's still here, running his place here. I told you that Orcus hadn't completely cleaned up its act after Holmes went through here. And he's still doing the whole milk thing. So, you have two options here. If you select this one, you'll be doing the uni version of this event, which is the one that I actually recommend more. But if you choose this option, you'll be doing the version that I'm not going to be making canon to the playthrough, which I'll be showing first. Oh great, the really naive one just came in. I mean, at least Catri's not here. In fact, come to think of it, I feel like Catri probably wouldn't fall for this. Although Catri would then probably try and redeem this guy somehow. Yes, ordinary citizen, nothing... oh, he even said that for me! Yes, don't trust random strangers who say that you're pretty out of nowhere. Yeah, this whole thing has just so many bad implications. It's just like there's a whole Mementos quest in Persona 5 that's essentially this. So, the event, this version of the event, I mean, involves Atrom. It means that both of them have to be present on this route in order to do it. I don't think anything will happen if Xeno and Uni are present, but either of these two aren't, and you say no to the Uni version. Yeah, Lyria is pretty weird overall. Yes, being a little naive is a really terrible thing to be when you're going through Orcus Village. Yes, and Holmes is saying exactly what ended up happening. Yeah, she's only 14, which makes this whole thing even worse. And he gives himself away. Incriminated by an earworm. At least that is kind of satisfying. At least he gets beaten up again. And, I'll just say, prepare for brain bleach in a moment. Yeah, that outfit is actually something that they asked the artist to draw for this game. And Lyria is still too, naive to realize what's going on. Oh yes, you'll become famous for all the wrong reasons. Shigen's like, hey, don't tease him, and then immediately teases him about Katri. And so, Holmes and Shigen's relationship in a nutshell. Do I? So, yes, that event raises the supports between Atrom and Lyria, and also, changes their ending. However, I'm going to be reloading, because I want to show the other version of the event for this playthrough. So if he decides to, have Uni be uncharacteristically stupid here, you know, I have, like, heard about that thing with, like, bells on cats and stuff, but, like, if they were really far away, you still wouldn't hear them. I think I've heard people say that they're supposed to be for scaring away birds or things like that, but I don't know. And yes, at this point, Xeno is the one who has, sudden psychic powers and knows exactly what's happening. Yeah, so Xeno's taking a lot more initiative in this version. Okay, so they are the same age. And so, once more, this guy gets beaten up. Though, Xeno's a little higher level in this playthrough, so this is probably way more painful for him, which is good. Wow, did someone actually change her clothes while she was... oh, wow, that makes this even more disturbing. Yeah, the implications here are incredibly horrifying. And yet we're still pulling the accidental pervert slap trope. Sorted it all out. So, okay, here's my headcanon as to what happened. So Shigen found, that guy. And then, he said, "Oh, hi, could you please hold my sword for a second?" And gave him Dullahan. And then, Shigen was like, "Okay, good. Now hold my other sword." Stab, 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 and just basically repeatedly stabbed him and had him repeatedly revive over and over with the Dullahan. It took like 40 uses off of the Dullahan, but it was completely worth it. And then he just went off and left him there traumatized. Harsh, but I kind of feel at this point that guy deserves it. But this event does actually continue a little bit longer than the Ashram and Lyria version. And that version of the event not only unlocks a much more increased epilogue between Xeno and Uni, it also raises their support instantly to a mutual 15%, which is actually the highest possible mutual support. In fact, the highest possible kind of support period. So that one, definitely better from a gameplay and, in my opinion, story standpoints. So that's the one I'll be going for in this playthrough. Now, as we pass by Marl Palace, something else is gonna happen. We're about to meet Bishop Ishizu, I mean Law. Yes, we parted ways. Definitely not any kind of breakup or anything, because I don't like Katri at all. No. Absolutely no romantic feelings for her whatsoever. I mean, I suppose he has a point there. But one day he should at least, visit them. This is... okay, yeah, he already says I'm no fighter. I was like, oh yeah, it's like we're getting another bishop, but no. He doesn't actually join us. But he is gonna be our, basically resident historian slash, expositor. That's basically what he is. But yeah, Holmes is very interested in this story now, and, it's definitely not because, he has a crush on one of them. Not at all. But this is actually... okay, so what we're about to see is, probably the biggest exposition dump in the entire game, even bigger than the Rishel one. And you can do parts of this, like in between Ruden's chapters. I feel like that's how you're intended to do it, but I'm going to be showing it all now just to get out of the way. But I will say, I like this one a lot more than the Rishel and Martel one, even if it's a lot longer, because I feel like this is actually very relevant information to the game's overall backstory, and just aspects of the plot that actually matter. Like, we really didn't need to know that much about Nareth and his whole treatment of Enter, and especially not what the Pegasus siblings feel about it. This is more about, the overall world building. So yes, colonists from Jugud, which is probably supposed to be Yogdrall, or however that's pronounced, from Fire Emblem, before they changed this game to be a totally not Fire Emblem game. So there was originally supposed to be some connection there, because Yogdrall and Arcania, or Arcanea, I think it's Arcanea, are both set in the same universe. I do like how there's actually, like, fictional language origins for the names of places here. So this kind of implies that Elia is sort of a suffix meaning place or city, because all of them follow that kind of naming theme. So Reeve is one of the oldest, countries here. Well, at least, that's what it seems like. Because there were already people living here, the Zoans. And Gerzel wasn't originally seen as an evil god, just a protector one. Yeah. That's... yeah, I mean, I know that what they were doing was brutal, but you kind of colonized their land too. That's going a bit too far. So this dark god that was mentioned in the opening scroll, that was actually Kalbazan, the chieftain who received Gerzel's power, not Gerzel himself. And at this point, yeah, he started to just conquer and destroy everything. So, it became a cycle. Though, of course, Kalbazan himself is sort of based in a way off of, Bishop Gale from the backstory of Fire Emblem 4. It's very, very similar. So yes, the modern cult of Gerzel is actually more like the cult of Kalbazan. But some of them did realize this. So, the Zoans themselves were also fractured. In fact, yes, Kaolon was, likely Zoan as well. So this part we already know from the opening movie. I'm so sorry, because I know this is like actually emotional backstory, but you could say that he picked a god and prayed. Well, actually, he didn't even pick a god, he just prayed and hoped that one would, pick themselves. I don't know if I've actually mentioned this before, I might have, but Miradonna is a combination of the names of Mila and Duma from Gaiden. So yes, Kaga definitely drew on a lot of his previous, games' backstories when he was creating this one. In fact, I wonder if in the original draft, like, they were actually related. In fact, Miradonna might have been Naga in the original, version of this game when it was still a Fire Emblem game. Haven't really heard much about that sword, though. It's still kind of funny, though, that, like, in a world where, you know, dragons are real, people still are like, oh, a legendary sword, yeah, that's too fantastical, that's obviously a myth. Oh yes, because too much exposition will be dangerous while driving. Never exposit and drive, or listen to exposition and drive. Well, sail in this case. But anyway, it's time for part the second of the giant exposition dump. So, the thing that I actually like to say about this is that a lot of people like to joke about the whole Kaga did it first thing, but, I generally don't like that, but my, personal, the one Kaga did it first that I allow myself is that Karalon and Utona are basically Seros and Wilhelm, if that Abyssal Library fanfiction that shipped them was actually true. In fact, Kalbazan is very similar to Nemesis in a lot of ways, too. Yeah, 60 is probably a decently old age for a medieval-type society. So that's where the nations all get their names from, although Reeve as a name of a place already existed. And Mount Cielo, Does that mountain have a Jamaican accent and is weak to ailments? I think I've already mentioned that, actually. I think cielo actually comes from a word for sky, though. Ambition and greed of senators, that's another... Oh, hey, that's similar to another plot point, but apparently Bearwick Saga actually has far more tellier similarities than this game. There are a lot of historical stories about an empire breaking apart once its leader dies, so this is pretty grounded. But sadly, the priestesses were all forced to just, yeah, like he's saying, become figureheads. Yes, I still don't recommend looking at the relationship chart for this game yet, because there are still spoilers in there, but, once I get to the end of the game and I show it, you will see that, oh boy, there is so much crossing over of bloodlines, and it means that almost everyone are cousins. Yeah, so, slight incest there, but, that kind of happens with a lot of royalty, as was the case in Fire Emblem 4. Now, we already know about the Leader and Salia incident. That was when Cranion got unleashed. See, it seems like the ancient precepts of Utona weren't just like a religious thing, it was more just a practical, okay, look, don't use dragons as weapons. Not only is it like a brutal human rights violation on the shamans, but also that happens. You just completely raise the continent and destroy everything. And then the dragon just spends the rest of their days insane. Now, I think this is the last part. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, he came in and was able to calm her down, and he seemed to talk quite intimately of her as well. Wow, the king did that to his own daughter? And yeah, she was the same age as Katri. So that's why we don't want to let Katri's bracelet end up in the wrong hands, because she could easily end up doing that. In fact, that's exactly what, happened with, Enter. So Sage Eisenbach was originally from Canaan, as we've heard from earlier. Now that's interesting. Yeah, we had heard some hints that Eisenbach was connected to Gwen Chaos somehow. Ah yes, the star pupil of a great sage. That does not remind us at all of one of Kaga's earlier works. Oh yes, because that's a great idea. So, the thing is that, like, Gwen Chaos would have been pretty young at that time, honestly. Well, I mean, racism never makes sense, as Laura's saying there. Now, okay, admittedly, I do think this is the point where this exposition dump goes a little bit too far. I don't think we really needed to know all of this. This is probably more just Kaga throwing in world building because he can. It's not really that important. I mean, it's decent info about the world, but we easily could have found out about this later. Maybe in an optional village conversation or something. So yes, the Canaanites are Zoans. They were descended from the ones who rebelled against the Kalbazan sect of the religion, basically. So yes, even the pure-blooded Zoans are divided into the multiple factions. This is actually something that, I told you that we'd get to this later. This is one of the things that I really, really love about TearRing Saga. I can forgive a lot of the clunky exposition in the mid-game, because this right here, no Fire Emblem game, before or in the modern era, has ever actually given, like, have ever portrayed, like, the evil dark magic cult this way. Even Three Houses, which went out of its way to do a grey and grey morality story, still couldn't resist making the evil dark magic cult the only pure evil faction in the game. So, like, it definitely doesn't justify what the Cult of Gerzel is doing or anything, but it's all backed on sort of centuries of a cycle of violence between native people and colonists, and a group of people who have genuine grievances due to all of the prejudice against them, that it's easy for a cult like this to recruit some people into it. It actually works in a way a lot like, yeah, I probably shouldn't say more because that's kind of real life stuff, but there are definitely real life parallels there. Anyway, we're on to a different subject here. So this is the island of Ir, and the story of Swordmaster Yoda, who is the adoptive father of Shigen. This is another part that I think is pretty cool, because it also shows that, like, there are a lot of Zoans in this game who are portrayed very sympathetically. So yeah, that's how the Island of Ear and Yoda, they became their own independent group. And yeah, that actually shows that Holmes' dad isn't all bad. Yes, that place is called the Tower of Morse. We might actually be able to scroll the world map to it at this point. That's also where we're supposed to take the Duckeron in order to resurrect the dead. See, a tower that used to be a symbol of oppression that got converted into a religious site is also very similar to the Tower of Bragi in Fire Emblem 4, so yeah, there's definitely a lot of Kaga plagiarizing his own work in this backstory. And in a lot of ways, Sage Morse basically is Gateau, and I almost feel like back when this was Emblem Saga, he probably was Gateau. Oh, Holmes, yeah, clearly you're not genre savvy about that at all. Ancient sages always live ridiculously long in, most fantasy settings, not just Fire Emblem. Like, in many fantasy settings, wizards just tend to live longer. And that is the end of the massive exposition dump that I like to call Sage Lore's Exposition Power Hour. We finally have access to grinding there. Our next destination is the East Sinai Sea, which is a new place, but before that, I'm going to call this video here, because that's been, like, all the exposition out of the way. Next time, we'll be getting into the actual action again, and I will be off-camera grinding, Leonie and Bilford a little bit. Mostly Bilford, I just want to see if he gains movement. So, I'll see you back here next time for Holmes Does Some Actual Piracy. See you all then.